Hold on a second. Here, hold this.
Okay.
Thanks.
Is this a referee flag?
That is a referee flag. That's
Fancy.
exactly what that is.
Or a ghost.
Or it could be a yellow ghost.
That's right.
You're right. Either way, please hold that.
I'm going to.
Yeah. It looks good on you, by the way.
Thank you.
It
Thank
accents, I feel like you're...
It makes me feel
jacket.
good too.
Does it? How so?
Yeah.
How's that make you feel good?
Yeah, I feel like I'm useful now. I don't know why.
I see. Oh, I thought it was more like a security blanket comfort thing, but
No,
I feel like you're doing something.
I feel like I'm doing something now. Yeah, something for you. And I feel like I can help you somehow.
You're serving.
I'm serving you, yes.
Good day, everyone, and welcome to Here Hold This, the moderately loquacious podcast about life, leadership, and the things that we love. Today, our very special guest is the Mike Wright.
Thank you. That was quite the intro.
Yes, well, I'm not done. Chris, how's my hair? Is it like, am I okay?
You are blending perfect.
Am I okay?
With the blue behind you.
Am I perfect?
Yeah, you're just a floating head in a blue shirt.
Be right with you. Okay, great. So the Mike Wright of ODL, and I got this right now. ODL is an acronym which stands for Only Drink Lemonade, which I think is an amazing, terrific life philosophy.
It is. Yes,
Yeah.
it's done me very well. Up until now, maybe, though, when people now actually know what that means.
Yes. So Mike Wright, ODL, who is Mike Wright?
Who am I?
Who is Mike Wright?
I am just a dude. As we go through this conversation.
You're just a dude.
I am just a dude.
Okay.
And
Like the Big Lebowski?
kinda, yeah. I love bowling. I love to hang out.
Okay.
You know, I just kind of like do my thing. But I guess just to get started real quick, I'm a dad. I'm a boss. I'm a husband. So, and those are probably the three most important things. I'm a God-fearing man as well. So that is definitely up there on the things that are my priorities that make me who I am. I have a huge family. I have 9 kids. I got a beautiful wife that has done all of this, who is the saint between the two of us.
You'd have to be.
Yes, absolutely. I run a business that's been in the family for many generations. And that's what I do every day. Is I get
All of those things.
all of those
You do
things.
all of those things.
Yes, every day.
Be a husband, father to 9,
Run a company.
fear God.
Yeah.
You know.
We're getting involved. We get involved in a lot of schoolwork, get involved in the schools with the kids. There's just a lot of work that has to get done. And so when me and my wife, we wake up, it's always about what do we have to do today? So lots
okay.
of stuff to do. I'm going to hold this. I got to keep this close to the chest.
Here, hold this, but whatever. We already
Right,
covered it.
exactly.
Just please don't make me say that. So I guess I would ask you, why are you here right now? How do you have time to be here right now?
Well,
Doing this.
that's a great point. I think I do have a personal assistant that helps my life manage all of this. And so she was able to just schedule the rest of the afternoon off. So even after this, I'm going home. So the business is
That is
crazy,
amazing.
but I have some really amazing people that I have been able to help and teach and kind of take over certain things. So I'm not as relevant as I used to be.
Oh, and that feels pretty good, huh?
It's different. It feels great on one side, but then it's like, I'm so used to just getting in the grind, and sometimes now I just get in the way. But it forces me to think about different things in the business.
It's interesting. In the grind versus in the way. That's interesting.
Yeah.
In the grind. In the way. I like tigers.
Okay.
Why do you think that is?
I have no idea.
Give me your 30-second leadership philosophy.
Oh, that's...
I know it's tough because I'm being unfair, but this is my podcast. So
And you have full authority
30
to
seconds.
ask any question.
leadership philosophy.
I think that for me, personally, it has always been about trying to understand the relationship between failure and success. And so every good leader, at least from folks I've read about, they've always failed. And the difference is they're able to pick themselves back up, and they can navigate the next time it's gonna come at you and punch in the face. So that's been my entire life story, is always starting with a failure and then not letting it define who I am, and then move past it and then learn the lesson. And then every little bit I've seen myself grow throughout there, and I think that's really helped me as a leader in the business, and in my family too, because there's a lot of humility in your family that you're shown often.
Mm-hmm.
So, but you have to lead the family, so you have to allow that, you have to own it, and you have to apologize, and then move yourself forward, and then continue to go upwards. So that's what I've looked at as leadership, is really just a lot of humble pie that has helped, transform into a natural leadership style. But it's usually it's just been a long process and a continual process, I think, until the day we die.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get
That's
punched in the face a lot more times.
That's exciting.
Yeah. I just think the fists get bigger.
But
Hopefully, I can navigate a little bit better, though.
Yeah, right. You are more capable of maybe like taking a bigger hit.
Yes.
Right. The hits can get bigger because you're taking on the stakes could raise. You're being bolder. You're trying to do bigger things.
Right.
Perhaps make bigger leaps. Yeah.
But I find myself going slower though now too. I find myself. It's almost like things happen in slow motion. So the punch is coming, but I can see it in slow motion now because I'm trying to slow myself down as opposed to making really fast decisions. Because I've always thought leadership was making fast decisions and moving very quickly. And I guess to some degree it is. Sometimes you have to make a quick decision to so that the place is hard. But
it's not one size fits all.
Correct.
The way you handle this situation is the way you handle all situations.
Exactly. So it's learning those lessons and then making the pivots when you need to, slowing down when you need to, but then speeding up if you have to.
Gotcha.
So
Well, I think it's a great philosophy.
we'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
Still
well,
here.
The internet will let us know.
That's true.
Right. So
And
it's
that
the ultimate arbiter of value,
that
as
is
we
true.
know.
The internet will let us know, and it will certainly let me know.
People on the internet.
And everyone else will let me know.
That's
as well.
right. That's right. Well, it sounds like from what I hear you saying and what I see of ODL and the reputations you guys have and the work that you're doing, it's working on some level. It must be. It must be, right?
So something's right. It hasn't fallen apart.
Exactly. The fact that you guys have been able to transcend generation like that you're in it with family, there's so many challenges inside of how you do what you do, but yet you guys are thriving, right? So obviously it's doing something.
Something's working.
It's doing something for you.
Yes. It's just come with a lot of pain and baggage.
Yeah.
Which is okay.
Yeah.
As it should.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think it's avoidable. I think for me, there's got to be problems. I think about it as I just want my problems, right? Which means I just need to be on my path, right? As long as I'm because part of my philosophy is around truth, right? Being honest with myself about who I am, who we are, trying to be honest with other people, trying to base things in the truth, trying to build strategies based on the truth, not trying to make something up. Part of what the work we do is creative. Creativity is not necessarily about just inventing things, right? So I'd rather observe what's happening and then build from what we're observing.
Sure.
Right? A truth-based approach. And so anyway, I don't know why I brought that up, but I did.
And no, it's great. You have a certain.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I gotta just I'm getting myself in the. Once I just gotta get myself there, but once I'm there, it's like
it's just all downhill from there.
Happens, right?
You
So
just got to start it.
Got to get there, right?
Yeah.
You and I had lunch
Yes.
a couple weeks ago at Mojo Market.
Correct.
Mojo Market. That's just fun to say.
It's a great place.
Mojo Market.
Yes.
Say it. Try it.
Mojo Market.
Mojo Market.
Yeah, we're going to Mojo.
Doesn't that feel good?
Yeah.
Mojo Market.
I like tigers too.
You do? You like tigers?
I like tigers.
You like tigers, but you don't know why you like tigers.
I think they're very elegant cats. I think they're
Elegant.
they're very powerful, but
Yeah.
they're very graceful. And then when they just command what they want and they just crush it.
They're tigers.
They're tigers.
They're
yeah.
tigers. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they're just cool.
But when we were there, you and I had the same dish. Not like we didn't share. We didn't share
No.
a meal, but we both ordered
Yes.
the same thing. Do you remember what it was?
I got a bowl with soup.
But that wasn't just any bowl.
No, it was their special bowl.
Yeah, the quinoa.
The quinoa bowl.
The quinoa bowl.
Yes.
Right.
And you say that so well and elegantly.
Quinoa. Thank you. The quinoa bowl. So we had his and his.
Correct.
Quinoa bowls.
Absolutely.
And I noticed that your quinoa bowl came without lettuce.
Correct.
Why is that?
I feel as if it's a filler and I just don't want to eat it. I just wanted to get to the protein. I wanted to get to the quinoa. I want to get to the good stuff. So I didn't want them to just waste the lettuce when I know I'm not going to eat it.
Okay, so we learned something about you.
Yes.
All right. So
I'm not a
you're
great guy.
You're also a bit of a conservationist, if you will, steward of the land, because you don't want to waste.
Well,
You
yeah,
want to
because
waste it.
I know I'm not going to eat it.
And I can respect that. I can totally respect it. I do that like when I'll order like an omelet or something and they want to give you like half a loaf of bread and toast.
Yeah, exactly.
And I say like, bring one slice of toast. And they always look at me like, Gary, he just asked for one slice. It's like, yeah, just one slice of toast because it's all I'm going to eat.
Exactly.
And I feel badly if there's like all this extra stuff on the plate when I'm done.
Well, yeah. And it forces you to feel like you have to eat it.
Yes.
And
it
I
does.
just don't want
Yeah,
it.
you feel obligated.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Thank you.
And I
Yeah.
probably should feel obligated because it is lettuce and it's probably good for me.
Yeah, I mean, I had lettuce on mine.
Yes.
And it's roughage. It's good for you.
It is.
But I did think to myself, man, this is way harder to eat.
Yes.
And I was watching you eat it, and it took me like probably 30%
It actually is harder to eat.
the thing because
Yes.
all the lettuce and the quinoa's getting lost. Anyway, we don't
Yes.
have time for this. Oh, you're a young guy.
Yeah.
So, okay. So ODL, full disclosure, it does not stand for only drink lemonade.
No.
It's not a philosophy in life or a cleverly named lifestyle brand.
No, it's
What is ODL? Though it could be. I feel like we might be onto something.
We could be. Yeah, we never know.
I don't know. A whole brand of I mean, you think of all the stuff we can make. You know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So ODL stands for Orthodont Laboratory. And it was just a silly name my dad came up with because he built a dental laboratory and he wanted to do orthodontic work. And he called it Orthodent. And then it's a laboratory because that's just what you call what we do. But we don't do any dental work. We do all orthodontic work. So some of it makes sense, some of it doesn't. But it actually sounds better as ODL than anything else.
Yeah,
So-
it has a certain kind of ODL. Yeah, I don't know. There's something about it.
There is something about it.
It kind of flows too.
Yeah.
ODL. It almost is like ODL. Is that a word? You know what I mean?
Maybe.
Because, you know,
Yeah, you could
you know, it sounds kind of
Yeah,
like it's a word.
ODL.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's easy to say. It's not terribly difficult to remember. To remember.
It was easy. It's easier to remember than I think the other one.
Yeah. Orthodont laboratory.
Than Orthodont Laboratory. I used to say, hey, this is Mike from Orthodont Laboratory. And they're like, what? What does that even mean? And then people would say, you guys are ODL. And I was like, hey, actually, that sounds pretty good. Let's do that instead.
Yeah. And it seems to be working.
And it worked.
Okay,
Yeah, it's
cool.
easier to say.
Father to 9,
Correct.
husband, business owner. Let me back up. Can you tell us just the kind of ODL story? Just the, you kind of
Where
give
we
us
came from?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, like just a 2-minute ODL story.
Yeah, it's so I don't even know why because I haven't been into teeth ever. It's not like I was a kid and I was like, hey, I want to like fix people's teeth. But it just seems like it's always been in the family. And so it was interesting because we started digging into the company just probably 10 years ago where a lot of this came from. And we ended up digging up a lot of history. And we ended up finding out that our great-great-granddad, his name was Frank Casto. He was one of the first orthodontists in the United States. Everyone was a dentist up until the early 1900s. They were fixing teeth, they were moving teeth. You could even find mummies and they would have metal brackets and wires around their teeth. They would just try to move their teeth.
That's wild.
Yeah, so they've been trying to do this for a long time. And so it was around that turn of the century when they said that orthodontics is now a discipline of dentistry. And he was one of the first orthodontists to go to school, learn different philosophies, and understand the mechanics of
This
how
was
to
your
move teeth.
great-grandfather?
Great-granddad.
Great.
Yes.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
going back.
It's going way back.
That's awesome.
It was really neat when we found it. And so he had letters between him and like FDR at times. He had, business letters from Harvard. And all he wanted to do really was just to help kids fix their teeth. but he was one of the early ones. And it was a really neat situation. He ended up going to Case Western, teaching out there, and his grandson, Larry, became an orthodontist, and he built a company here in Buffalo called Owl Orthodontics. And so there are a couple different locations here, and he was a really great dude. He was very altruistic, and he really wanted to focus on kids with cleft palates. So if you see a kid and they have that little curve right here in their mouth, they kind of go inwards. It's really they don't have enough structure in the palate of their mouth, so everything starts to implode upwards and pulls inwards.
Gotcha.
They don't have enough in their sinus cavities. There's just a lot that's not there. So he worked a lot trying to help kids restructure that and help to reframe their skeletons so that he could, do bone grafting, do a lot of work to be able to help kids with that, and then do the orthodontic work afterwards. And so he left quite the mark, and they built a wing down at Oshai called the Larry Wright Craniofacial Wing. And so it was all based on his work with kids. So it was a really neat legacy he built.
It's an amazing honor. It's going to make you feel good to be like, hey.
He was a really great student.
grandpa.
Yeah, because he always said.
That would be your great-grandpa.
That was my granddad.
Oh, that was your granddad.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
There was a space in there. I don't know what.
Gotcha. Sure, it's okay. You're right. We leave that out.
We don't know what
because it's not important.
There's a
the
dude
story,
somewhere in
and
there.
it's okay.
Yeah.
Like, he had teeth.
He did have
right.
teeth.
So
We're making an assumption.
There's continuity. There's
Exactly.
continuity there.
Yeah, and at that point, so he had 4 kids, 4 boys. 2 became orthodontists. 1 became a shrink, and the other became an auto mechanic. The docs, they worked with him to be able to learn the craft. All 3 of them worked together. The shrink, he stayed at home, raised 4 boys, and the auto mechanic was my dad. And he was really good with his hands. He knew how to take things apart. He loved how mechanically things worked. So he could take a Saab transmission, take it apart, and rebuild it with his eyes closed. And he ended up selling tools for Snap-on. Big Snap-on trucks going around, and the Matco trucks. Yeah, so he would go over there, and he just did not like the business. There's some backstories to that, but he ended up saying to his dad, like, I got to get out of this business. I'm not the science guy, but I'm the mechanical guy. So I don't necessarily understand so much the biology like you do, but I understand the mechanics, and all orthodontics is biomechanics. So he was really good with his hands, and he ended up making retainers and expanders and all of the things that move teeth for kids in the basement of his father's practice, which was up on Main Street in Amherst, next to Brunner's.
Gotcha.
And so those were kind of the earliest memories. And when you're starting a business, it becomes like another sibling. So I had 7 siblings, and then there was ODL. And so you have your dad, he's crushing it, he's doing as much as he can, he's working 90 hours a week, so we ended up being in the lab a lot. And it was really neat. You got to play with the tools, you got to see your dad work, and eventually I got into the business because it's really all I knew. And, he taught me everything he knew, and I ended up going through the ranks, understanding the business. And I was good with my hands, as I saw, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, and I was able to start making retainers along with him. And then he just kind of taught me the business. And my brothers got involved, and then we ended up buying him out in 2017. And then once that happened, we hit the pavement. We decided to grow the business, and that's been a crazy journey. So he was always pretty small during that time, about 10 employees. And then, and we were part of that. And when we wanted to really go at it is when we started to do some marketing. We started to really take it seriously, where it just wasn't a paycheck anymore. It's like, hey, let's do something with this legacy. And just ended up falling in love with it. So that's what we do every day.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's such a cool story. Tigers. I got tigers on my.
Do you got tigers in your socks?
I got tigers. Oh, a second. I got tigers in my socks. Check that out.
Wow.
These are from my daughter. I got these in my stocking for Christmas this year for my daughter. I also got another pair that has like fruit, like bananas and like apples and oranges and stuff. But like, look at that, right?
I love it.
Right?
And so it's hard because when you're in manufacturing, you're just like making widgets, but we have to teach them that this is somebody's smile that you're helping to create.
Okay.
And you can't forget that, because most of these kids that are on the other side of that, they don't want to smile, or they're afraid to smile, or there's an adult that is terrified to smile because they hate it. And so, and it's funny because my granddad would always say, you have to smile, and he would always sign his name, Larry, keep smiling, because he just intuitively knew as you smile, it changes your muscles. You have different endorphins that happen. Like there's something to it, even if you force it. So it's always trying to inspire the staff to let them know that there's somebody that's lacking confidence on the other side of this, and our job is to inspire that confidence. So that's kind of the exciting part of what we do. We don't get to see it all the time, but That's why we do what we do. That's why we get up in the morning. That's like the core purpose of the organization, is that inspiring confidence in every patient, behind those bins.
It's amazing. And you know that about yourself. You know what your purpose is.
Absolutely.
That's amazing.
Yeah, because I don't want to get up every day and just make a piece of plastic. Nobody does.
Yeah.
Everybody in the fact, I even tell them, I don't get up to make this stuff. This isn't super exciting. There's something different that we have to know that's actually happening. So I have to tell stories. Like that's one of my main roles is I have to tell stories to the staff, let them know what's happening, get them involved so that they stay motivated. Because the business landscape is not easy, especially kind of with these technical jobs of trying to teach, train, and then maintain. So easier said than done.
Yeah.
So they have to have a story.
He gets it. This guy gets it. I should say, Mojo Market is not sponsoring this episode. Now, I did approach them.
Okay.
And asked them if they wanted to sponsor this episode. And they politely declined. So I groveled. And they asked me to leave.
Okay.
And I refused.
Just like they refused.
Yeah. And now I'm not allowed on that stretch of Delaware Road for a moment. We have a team here at Here Hold This that kind of helps. So they do a lot of research. They spend a lot of hours digging in to the lives of our guests so that we can be prepared to really have rich, meaningful, intense conversations. All right. And our team, in their research, discovered.
This is great. I can't wait.
Well, you already know this. I'm not about to tell you anything you don't already know.
I didn't know. We're pulling some skeletons out of the closet.
What? Is this fun? And he's like, oh no.
I know what
it's like, oh geez. It turns out that you're an elite amateur fitness competitor.
Oh, yes.
Right?
Yes.
Oh, come on. Let's hear about this. This is exciting to hear.
Yes.
When I learned about this, I'm like, I gotta ask him.
Well, of course, because you're in the same boat.
Elite amateur, thank you, fitness competitor.
Yes. So I love fitness, and it kind of started because my life is insane. It's just bonkers every day.
Yeah.
And so I'm a guy that's like a wound top, and if I'm not moving, I'm just gonna like fall apart. So I got a ton of stress, I got a ton of anxiety, and I'm like, I got to do something with this. Got to go somewhere. And so once I got to a gym, and it was super awkward the first time you walk in. If you remember the first time you walked into a gym, it's like, I don't know how to do anything here. Let's try this. My form is terrible. I'm hurting myself. My back's about to fall out of my body. But then it was, I just felt great afterwards. And then I just kept doing it. And I don't know, for whatever reason, I'm incredibly competitive. So I just love competing. So when I go into a gym now, and so I'll do, I'm at the local F45. And so as soon as I walk in the door, first thing that goes in my mind is, all right, who am I going to compete with here? They don't know it, but I'm just kind of building the competition in my head. Because that's how I'll get through it. Because I only got 45 minutes. So I got to drive myself somewhere.
So who are you competing with here right now?
No one. Because I'm not working out.
Oh, I see. This is only when working
this
out.
in a competitive environment.
Back to you.
Yes.
Okay.
So I make it competitive because it helps drive the workout. And so, but I try to stay disciplined with it and get in there at least 5 or 6 days a week. But again, it's really just like that time where I can get myself in my own head and I can kind of be by myself, even though I'm surrounded by people. Mm-hmm. And so it's a really great time. And then it ended up, turning into, well, what if I try to compete with this? What can I do with this now? Mm-hmm. So I used to be a competitive gymnast for years and years and years. And I would compete, and I loved it.
You were a competitive gymnast?
Yes.
Why was that in the notes? That wasn't
Nobody
in the notes.
Really knows
that was
about
not
that.
in the notes. No,
Sorry.
no. That's the kind of stuff that our team's paid to uncover.
Sorry, guys.
Afterwards,
competitive gymnast?
Afterwards, we're talking about
it was a secret.
Soviet bloc country, perhaps?
I'm looking at you, Gary. Anyway, so you were a competitive gymnast.
Yeah, so I loved competing, and so I would always push myself to see how well I could do. And that comes from a whole, I know where it comes from, and it's always trying to win, always trying to get better. I remember when I was younger, I would always try to compete, and I couldn't because I was kind of small, so I was never like the first to get picked.
But isn't that like what gymnastics is all about?
Well, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and so then I find that, and I'm like, I think I could do well with this.
Yeah.
So I'm not necessarily a good team competitor to be on a team. I'm a great
You're an
individual.
individual
Yes.
performer. I've got a daughter that's similar like that. Yeah.
Yes, because I want to take all the pressure on myself, and I also don't want to rely on anybody else either.
Yeah.
And so that obviously becomes a detriment later in life.
That doesn't work in all venues. Right.
But in competition,
But in gymnastics, perhaps that can work.
It really does. Yeah. So it was great, and it was a lot of fun. So I wanted to start competing to see what I could do. So then I started doing, some tough mutters. That was really fun. And then where I really got things handed to me is when I did a Spartan race, and that was incredibly difficult. I couldn't even finish it. You get to the end, and the last two parts of it, you're just gassed.
Yeah.
And so now the next competition is what you're very familiar with, which I haven't done yet, is doing a high rocks competition. So doing the training already, we're competing in May. And so I'm
New York, right?
In New York, yes. I'm super excited about that.
Meredith is going to be at that in New York.
Is she competing?
She's competing in New York. Yeah,
That's
with a
amazing.
friend. I'm not going to go to that one. We're going to Houston in
Right.
March. But she's going to be there. So we'll have to figure out how to, try and get her if you're interested.
Yeah, that would be fun because I'm going with my wife. I asked her nicely if you would please be my partner.
Yeah.
And she's like, no, I'm not doing this.
But she'll go. But she's going to go.
But she's gonna do it with me. Yeah.
Oh, she is going to do it.
gonna
So she
yeah.
is. Oh,
I said I don't
wow.
have a partner. I need
Oh,
somebody
gotcha.
to do this
You
with.
want to do the doubles. Gotcha. Okay.
Because I want to do the doubles.
Yeah,
Yeah.
fair enough. Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. I thought about this and I thought, well, the Mike Wright, kind of like the Ohio State.
Okay.
Right? But when you say the, you're supposed to say it before a word that starts with a vowel. But Mike starts with a consonant.
Right.
M. So technically speaking, it should be the Mike Wright. But when you say the Mike Wright, it just does not nearly sound as like beautiful and powerful as the Mike Wright.
Interesting.
So I'm thinking if it's okay, we bend grammar a little bit and go with the Mike
for it.
Wright. Are you cool with that?
I'll take that.
All right, perfect.
Yeah, I will take that.
All right,
As
so
long as you're okay with that.
I think so.
Okay.
I think so. Yeah. I prayed about it. I'm feeling pretty good about it.
Excellent.
Yes.
Divine intervention.
Absolutely. So when you are at the gym and you're in the middle of a workout and it's a banger,
Yeah.
and it's like it's tough and it's really stretching you, and now the mental part comes in, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you're physically kind of getting fatigued, but mentally it's kind of working on you. What do you think about? What do you start working through? What do you tell yourself? Like I'm really curious because I have kind of things that start going through my mind to try to win through that, right?
Yeah.
Like, what are you thinking about? What are you doing in those moments?
So it's fun. So it's very personal, actually. I don't even know you're going to ask this question.
Okay, or if it's too personal.
No, it's not too personal.
You definitely have to tell us.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Now we're getting to the juicy
Well, because
stuff.
it's true, because it's at that moment you think to yourself, how do I get through this? And it's not like we're going through a ton of pain. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot more worse things that are around.
Yeah.
But you're
Relatively
you're
to the
experiencing
moments.
this pain,
Yeah.
this suffering,
Yeah.
and you have to get through it, and it's going to end.
Yeah.
So there are times when if it's really bad. So I talked about how I'm a God-fearing man,
Yeah.
and so I relate myself a lot to Christ as a person, and I look at him as somebody who suffered immensely for me. And I'm like, so I'll say to myself, all right, if he could do that for me, the least I can do is do this squat and sit in this pain. Like this is not that big of a deal.
But it's a front squat.
I know.
My
And
wrists-
arms
my
hurt, right?
wrists
My
hurt
wrists.
trying to hold it
Or I gotta hold it in here and hold it right. Yeah.
Oh.
I gotta hold myself up.
Poor guy.
Yeah. So it helps put things in perspective.
Sure.
Like
That's a
look,
good
we can do this. We can totally do this. So
Yeah.
so what it does, it kind of dispels this myth that I can't do it. Because I know I can do it. It just depends if I have the will at that moment to do it. And there's sometimes I'll break and I fail and that's okay.
Yeah.
The weight just has to drop.
Sure.
But there's sometimes when I can do this. I don't know if I can last that, because when you see the clock going down, the last 5 seconds is like the last 5 hours.
Sure.
And so those are the hardest parts. But I got to tell you though, when you do it and you see the clock go to 0 and you fall, it's like, oh, that was amazing.
Yeah.
And you feel great. The suffering has to come first. And we talked a little bit about this. Suffering always comes first before the victory. You just have to be okay with it.
Yeah, and you feel like you earned it.
Oh, you totally do. Yep.
So, which is why, and so part of that's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I have. There's personal things that come to my mind. That might be like something that a challenge that I'm working through, maybe within the family or within the business, with a client challenge or whatever it is that like is on my mind and is really giving me a run for my money.
Yeah.
Right. I kind of almost make it about that and be like, look, because I want to be able to deal well with that, I need to show up here now, and I need to be 100% here now.
That's,
you know, so
that's the biggest lesson.
I connect.
Right.
You see, I connect the two, right? And I realize it's all in my mind, right? Because those two things are not necessarily connected. But I do think that how you, what's it said, like you practice how you play.
Yes.
And how you do one thing is how you do everything.
Of course.
Kind of idea, right? I want to go for the jugular.
Go for it.
Okay.
Let's do it.
There's something bigger at play here, and I'm not just here to do this workout. I'm here to be a kind of person who does a workout like this because of the bigger picture, I guess, right?
That's probably the most important part of it all. Because if you look at any virtue, take humility, for example, you don't just become a humble person. You have to be humiliated multiple times in order to become a humble person. So if you are looking at, because nobody wants to go into a gym and push and pull stuff all day long. I'm going to go push and pull heavy objects, and I'm going to have a great time doing it. We try to make a good time out of it, but at the same time, there's that discipline that we have to build so that by the time we encounter something that's really important, let's just take, getting into an argument with our wife, right? Or something where I do have to have some discipline to be able to help manage the situation, or I have to control that anger, or I have to somehow show a virtue. It's not just going to come because I just somehow summoned it. It has to be some kind of training. So I agree with you 100% that going against the will and exercising that helps you in so many different areas of life. Raise teenagers, for crying out loud.
Sure.
So it's even with kids, you go through some of that very difficult times, but it does make you a better person. You may have lost your cool a million times, but it does get better. And because I feel the same way. And you really have to suffer through things in order to gain the discipline, so you get better at the other things, the really important things.
Yeah.
So and I've always been a big fan of, I can't trust people with the big things if they can't do the small things. And I tell it to people at work all the time. It's like, if you can't even clean up your area, how am I going to trust you to do bigger responsibilities? Like, take on the small suffering. This is going to kill you here.
Yeah.
And so those are the things we try to teach to some of the folks. But I relate to that 100%.
We talked about the Tigers, right?
We talked about the Tigers.
Already talked about the Tigers.
Nice.
I could go back to the Tigers again, but I won't. By the way, are you comfortable? Some people aren't comfortable in front of a camera, let alone in front of a live studio audience, right? Like, this is cool for you?
I'm okay. Yeah.
Okay,
We're just going to go.
Excellent.
He's
And
just chilling behind the camera.
Yeah, I'm saying, there's Chris behind the camera. I'm talking about like everybody else here, though. Like
That's true. That's true.
Yeah,
all
that's
the
not-
other folks.
that's not intimidating to you?
No, it's fine.
Gosh, I'm really impressed. So I want to,
Thank you, everybody, for coming and joining us today.
yeah. See, they love you. Listen, they love you. They love you.
Just edit out the noise.
Yeah. We actually are going to edit it in, but that doesn't matter. They don't need to know that. They can pretend along with us that we're in front of a live studio audience.
I love it. It's okay.
And you're, you could have thrown,
As a failure, I'm
gonna take
space. And now if I do it again, I'm going to know exactly what to do.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
without that first time.
So I feel like I should return the favor and tell you something pretty personal. Okay.
Go for it.
All right. So I did a High Rocks last fall.
Yes.
And it was my first High Rocks. And I have only really been kind of like working out this way at that point for about 10 months. Okay. So I was a little nervous about like what I was about to do, right? Because you watch the videos and you see the bodies of the people in the videos that are doing this stuff, and you're like, I don't look like that.
No.
That dude looks scary. I don't look scary. I look scared. Right? So there's this point, and you're going to experience this, I think, when you do it in New York, right when they're launching you before your wave goes out to start your race, where there's there's this person that's kind of like, they're kind of getting you pumped up a little bit, but they're also getting your mindset into kind of like a certain space so that you're kind of focused on what you can do. And what this woman was saying, she said a lot of things. I don't remember most of them. But the one thing that I remember her saying is like, when you go out there, who are you going to be? And what is this kind of like, what is this race going to be about? And I had not at all considered anything like that.
It's very philosophical.
Right? And it was. And almost like spiritual.
Yes.
Right? And so I'm there, and just like in the moment, I said, I'm going to make this about, and this, I think you'll get it. It might sound a little whatever. I want to make this about my relationship with God. That's what I'm going to do. And I am going to just try to keep that in front of me and use this as an opportunity to perhaps have like a dialogue, a communication is I don't know how that would even work. It's not like how do you do that in a fitness race, right? But like that was just the thought that occurred to me. And in the moment you run out, right? So the first thing starts with a run, you run out. And so you're trying to get a pace, right? And so I'm just hearing this like bump, 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 like this kind of like almost like metronome kind of thing in my mind. And 3 words came to me, and it was in relation to God. You, me, us. You, me, us. You, me, us.
That's amazing.
And that became my mantra through the whole race. And so that's what I was focused on. Those 3 words, and I was timing it to my breathing. You, me, us, my movements, that sort of stuff to kind of like just, because I was honestly afraid of like exactly like, could I get through this? I think I can. You know what I mean? Like when it gets tough, that sort of stuff. So anyway, so I shared that.
That's amazing. That is a wonderful story. It's almost like you're going into a building a relationship, and you're kind of wondering. I was wondering how you're going to tie it in, but that's really all it is. You're afraid of something. You're about to suffer through something, and then all it is we're going to do this together, and we're going to get through it. Because sometimes that's all you have is that repetitive cadence.
Yeah.
You know, I look at that as prayer. Sometimes prayer can be repetitive.
Sure.
But it's just that repetitive cadence because as humans, we need that constant reminder. Just because for whatever reason, it helps us, you know, remember something or appreciate something. But that's awesome. That's a great story.
Thank you. I feel like we sort of answered that question, so I'm going to skip that one. Yeah, I would think that sounds like a pretty amazing place to be able to work, an environment where you understand what your purpose is, then you know it's deeper than the technical thing that you're producing, right? And what that gives the team that gets to work inside of that kind of environment is amazing. And it is rare. And so I think that's very cool. I was very impressed, by the way, with the way that you have your story on your website.
Okay.
It's really, really well done. Again, you don't always see that level of execution on kind of an origin story and kind of like the background and the deeper meaning behind who you guys are and what you're doing. So kudos to you on that.
Thank you.
Dr. Angle, right? That was the guy that was like that first guy, right? Dr. Angle?
Dr. Edward Angle. He's like the granddaddy of orthodontics.
The granddaddy, not your granddaddy.
No. It's a different granddaddy.
Or great-great-granddaddy,
yep.
Right? But Dr. Angle, what a remarkable name for a guy that puts metal in someone's mouth to correct. You know what I mean? Think about that. Dr. Angle.
Yes.
Also, a little bit sounds like a villain from like a comic book.
Oh,
right?
maybe, yeah.
Dr. Angle. But so Dr. Angle, orthodontist, do you think he changed his last name for marketing purposes? Do you think his last name's really like Johnson or like Stevens or
maybe Smith
or something,
it's just
right?
Ed
You
Smith.
know, exactly.
Ed Smith.
And he was talking and he's like, no, really, Dr. Angle.
I know,
It's
it sounds cool
it's just,
too.
It's good marketing. If that was just really his name, then
It
wow.
really could be. You never know.
It's like there's power in names. You ever know you meet someone and you're like, they're totally a Mike, or you know what I mean? There's something about like the power of a name.
That's right.
You know,
Mike Wright as you start.
The Mike Wright. If you don't hold the thing that I ask you to hold, it's kind of like, well, what's the point, right? You know?
Yeah.
So you have 2 partners, right?
Yes.
Okay. And they're both brothers. One is a brother-in-law.
Correct.
Right? And the other is biological.
Correct.
Brother.
Yes.
Okay. So you guys are partners.
Mm-hmm.
You're also brothers, and I can
Yes.
get a sense from you that like your brother-in-law is still like you probably don't totally make that distinction, and I bet he's like another brother.
Yeah,
to
you just
right?
work together.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
Right. So, what is that like? Operating and owning a business
Yes.
with your brothers.
So initially it was hard. And because we have all different personalities and we're all very driven. But what we did do is we went through the family business track at CEL at the school.
Yeah.
And one of the things they make you do is they make you do like a personality profile. And that's when I first learned about DISC and just understanding what type of personalities we have.
Okay.
And so once we started to understand who we were, it did get a lot easier to say, all right, well, if we're going to be effective together, I have to understand who you are as a person and how you operate. And then, but you also have to communicate to me when I just can really just make you mad, or you really are just so irritated with me. And I do the same thing. And so what we've learned is to try to work together better, but knowing who we are as people. And that was really helpful because it was a lot of tension when we first bought the business, because we all have stake in it and we all had ownership and we all wanted our little piece to follow the way that we wanted it. And so when you do that in 3 different places, they're going to collide. And they certainly all did.
Sure.
And we definitely worked through that. But I'll say that over the course of time since we've been doing it, we've grown a lot closer together because we've all kind of suffered together. So we've got to celebrate the wins, we've got to celebrate the losses. And what's nice about it is that we all have each other's back. That's the one thing. So we have people come in, they'll come in, they'll quit, they'll say terrible things about us. But the one thing we do have that we can rely on is each other. So they're not going to quit on me, I'm not going to quit on them. And that's a very comforting thing, especially when you're growing a business. And especially in the CEO role, it can be definitely lonely because you're just trying to make decisions sometimes. And sometimes you have to make them in a vacuum because they don't understand. Nobody understands the decision that has to get made. But when you have some brothers in the mix, it's nice to be able to know that they got your back, even if they can't understand the true vision. And that's been great to be able to have them watch me fail, and then I get to watch them fail, and then we get to pick ourselves up. We get to learn something. So it's definitely been a learning journey with all of them. But I think the trust factor has been the one thing that we have that maybe I would have found it with some other folks, maybe not. I don't know, but we were in it together. We had no choice but to make it work. So it was good. It's been very good, actually.
That's awesome. So I feel like a lot of times you hear about these situations and in front, you make it look a certain way.
Yes.
Right? But behind closed doors, it's not like that. Right? And in family, it can get contentious and it can get weird. And there's all sorts of ripple effects, not just within the business, but then within the family. Right. And that's such a shame. But you hear about it, you see it over and over again. So that's super encouraging to hear that you guys have found a way. Right. But you did it through reflection. You did it through understanding and empathy and hard work. And these are the things that it's on the menu for literally any owner operator.
Oh, absolutely.
Whether they have partners or not, whether their partners are family, you're running a team. You have to know yourself.
Yes.
You have to have self-awareness. And if you're going to work closely with other people, you have to know them. If you're going to lead people, you have to know them. But how many leaders, and I can raise my hand for a period of time, just didn't take the time to do that?
Well, of course.
Right? Because it's one more thing, and it's but it's essential, right?
It is.
And you obviously are living proof of the difference it makes when you actually make it a priority, do the work, make yourself be vulnerable, right?
That's
expose yourself,
right?
These types of things, be accountable, right? That's amazing.
Yeah, those are the hard things, but that comes with time.
I'm sure it's maturity, right?
Yeah.
We can't, don't judge yesterday you by your understanding today, right? That's not fair.
Right. And because what you have to do is you have to look at the progress that you've made. And that's the encouraging part. Because it's going through this, for anybody that's starting a business or getting into this, it's very difficult. And you have to be okay with the failure. And I think that's the one thing we've talked about.
So remind me.
Sometimes you have to.
Yes.
But we made a rule initially, though, in the beginning when we bought it. And my dad was very good about the transition. You know, he gave us a survey. He wanted to see what we thought about it. He asked us questions like, if I were to sell this to another company, how would that make you feel? You know, do you want to buy it? So he really wanted to get our buy-in into it. And so that was helpful to get us all on the same page. But when we did buy the company, we made a decision that said we got two things. We have ownership on one side, we got management on the other side. So we're going to work in the business. I'm going to have a role and you're all going to have roles, but we're all owners, but we can't have them you can't cross the streams. You know, if we're a management team and we're managing the business in our positions and one person says, we're going to do this because I'm an owner, so we're going to do this. Well, that screws everything up. So you can't drop an owner card in your management team. So we made an early decision that leadership here is leadership as a team. Ownership is completely separate. We'll have separate meetings. We'll have separate minutes. That's a whole different ballgame. Don't let them cross. Otherwise, it creates a lot of friction.
Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah, so that was one lesson we learned at CEO.
Yeah,
It was good. And we've tried to do that. Because
Yeah.
I think the problem you run into is that you've seen with family business that collapse. A lot of it's like, well, I own half this business, so I'm going to take all this money and I'm going to just, I'm going to do this and I'm going to, just buy all this crazy, whatever it might be, But they do it because they're owners, and that's where a lot of collision comes in.
Yeah. Don't read into that. That says more about, like, I think the weight of that and like the dew point than it necessarily does.
There was a little bit of the atmosphere here kind of pushed the thing down.
Yeah, 100%. And so that's, to me, that's mindset, right? It's story, right? So we're storytellers by trade. And it occurred to me at some point that, well, you think of the things that are naturally stories. You think of, like, stories you tell, the tales you tell, maybe the media you consume could be a story. You think about advertisements. Okay, I can see how, like, an advertisement could be a story. Like the traditional things that you attach the term story to. But everything's a story. We think in stories. We communicate in stories. And so what leadership is a story. What it means to own a business is a story. And there are many different versions of that story. Which version is your version of that story? Some of those versions, right, help you maybe more than they help other people.
Sure.
Right? So I think it's like unwinding a little bit and asking the question of, like, okay, like, well, what stories are we telling? It sounds like what you guys have done and what people that coach you to do as well. It's like, well, let's, like, look at these things.
I love the idea
and
of
make
story.
a decision, right, around what we want our stories to be, what's motivating us here. Because you can have a story that's not useful, but you repeat it to yourself. And that's when you cause major friction for yourself and other people. And you don't even know that's why that's happening. Because you're acting out of that belief system or that mindset that's on loop in your mind.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. And it's because you have some pride in there too, that gets mixed in with the story. And it's like, well, I'm totally right here. Yeah. We got to do it this way. And then it completely explodes.
Well, few people I think are like, nah, I'm wrong. Like, I mean, I think you're right.
Exactly.
Like, it's kind of, I mean, it's literally your last name, Mike Wright. I mean, come on. Like, it's, it's right there.
No, but I love the idea of how everything can result from a story. And we do that too. And I like look at numbers. I'm not great at math. I'm terrible at math. But when I look at, the numbers of the company, it tells me a story. And when I started to look at it as a story, I started to enjoy it a lot more. So if you can relate the storytelling to parts of the business or parts of your life, it makes it a lot more enjoyable and understandable. At least it has for me. The problem is when you create that story or some kind of narrative and you stick to it and there's no type of wiggle room in there and it can explode.
Yeah.
And that's what we see in a lot of family businesses.
Yeah. And we often want to reinforce because we like being right. We don't like the idea that maybe we've missed something. So we do reinforce. And there's a tendency to ignore contradicting data and information and reinforce the thing that you already believe in, right? So there's a double-edged sword to story, right? Like, once it's locked in, even if it's a great one, it could create some blindness.
Well, sure.
Because I want this story that is maybe a more enlightened, higher value story. I want that to be true. So maybe I might ignore some things that might contradict that maybe there is some learning in there, right? So,
sure.
But that's to your point. It's maturity. It's constant growth. You come to it as you come to it.
You
And
have to.
Hopefully, you're surrounded by people who give you grace, understand where your heart is, even when your actions are maybe not totally in line with that.
And that's where the trust has to come in with your team. Holding this ghost.
Your compliance in this matter does help me.
Good.
The name of the show is Here, Hold This.
Oh, really? Okay.
So we're going to close this out, if that's okay. We're going to close this out. You've been fantastic.
Well, thank you for having me.
There is one more mountain to climb here,
Okay.
and it is known as the wheel.
Okay.
Chris, could you bring out the wheel?
Wow.
That's usually the response we get.
The wow.
Yeah.
And let's see what this wheel looks like.
Yeah, you are going to be pretty impressed with this thing. I think Chris might have gone to the parking lot for it. I'm not totally sure.
That's okay.
The wheel, Chris, the wheel. The wheel.
Round.
The wheel, yeah.
Ooh.
I know what you're thinking from a
Candies
distance.
down there?
That is a paper plate, yes. And it is of quality construction. Thank you, Chris.
Well,
Fantastic.
absolutely.
Yeah,
the
those
pen or the pencil in the back.
Charms Pops. Also, here, hold this. Not sponsored by Charms.
Okay.
Not sponsored by Charms. And the concept here is you'll spin the wheel and you'll notice in between the pops, there are these little things that have a number on it.
Okay.
And you'll spin it and we'll do this thing, right? And it'll land. You're familiar with how wheels work, right?
I'm getting there.
And then your final question will be selected based on where you land.
Excellent.
You comfortable with this?
Yeah, let's do it.
We're going to do a practice. Give us a practice spin just so you get comfortable with how this is going to work, all right?
Okay.
Because it is... Oh, you did it. You did it. Perfect. Okay. So now, go ahead. This one's going to be for the record.
All right, you ready?
Yeah.
I love this technology.
One.
Number one, no whammies.
Number 1 says C number 5. Can I read you 5?
Sure, Chris.
Yes.
When life hands you lemons, you make lemonade. What do you do when life hands you lemonade?
You drink it.
Wow. That required no thought. You just knew.
You just drink it. Yeah. That's
When
delicious.
life hands you lemons, you make lemonade. But when life hands you lemonade, you just drink it.
You drink it. Yeah.
I don't think there's any way to add to that. Honestly, that requires zero explanation.
You know
I think, seriously, take that with you where you go today. When life hands you lemonade,
You drink it.
you drink it. Wow.
Absolutely.
I got it.
You got it?
Well, you got to do it without moving the chair because you don't want to lose your spot.
That's right. And you cleared the table.
Yeah. Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, Mike Wright, come on.
Thank you, my friend.
You've been amazing.
This was wonderful.
Thanks for being here. Thanks
Wonderful
for
to
being
be here. I appreciate the time. A great conversation. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay, absolutely.